Throughout the history of business, there have been companies that suddenly appear by bursting open the doors of opportunity. They may boast charismatic leaders, products that actually do change our lives, or possess that unique art of making a deal. These elements of success serve their organizations well, but may only serve them for a short time. For there's one component of success that has proven to be a master key in determining longevity.
You know, when this profession was evolving and maturing as a profession, it wasn't because some one person or some small group did it. It's because the profession rallied around certain issues and created an environment for itself that began to build the reputation that it now has. In the future, we have to build that reputation as well, but in new areas. There is nothing in this world that will ever have a life cycle that is just a flat line, that builds to maturity and never has the risk of decline. We have the risk of decline. Technology, changing perceptions, international, those things provide both risk and opportunities for us. And the successful organizations, the successful individual CPA, and certainly the successful profession as a whole, are those that can find the point to jump off on that life cycle curve and create a new life cycle curve with new products, new services, and a new image. Collectively, we can do that.
There's a big difference between historical successful organizations and future successful organizations. And the reason for that is you will find that globally we undergoing quite tremendous change. And if you're in a stable environment like we were in the 60s and 70s, you can pretty much just look around you and do the right thing and succeed. Once you start undergoing change or are involved in a change environment, you need some sort of a longer view. And seeing that future obviously includes, firstly, having a vision, having a clear picture of what it is, where we're going, and what we're going to do there. I think the fundamental outcome that we received from the grassroots forums were the appreciation that we need to move out of the regulatory world into a market-focused world. We've got to remember that the CPA profession probably still lives under the image and the public perception that was created 50 years ago. Now, if we move from a regulatory environment to a market environment, the CPA profession has to accept the obligation to not only change themselves, but change that perception outside as well. So they are obliged to educate, motivate, and excite the market about their new services, their offerings, and what they stand for. Out of all the issues mentioned, one that perhaps has the broadest implication is the issue of competitor moves and structural changes within the profession. I think there are two variables in that. The one is the capital market pays a premium for people on there, on the stock exchanges, and the other one is simply ownership and liabilities. And if you look at the CPA profession structure at this stage, it prohibits the profession from capitalizing on trends that are happening globally. And they have to do something about that.
I think the issues that came out of the vision statement told us several things. One very important thing that it told us was that a lot of the issues and a lot of the things that leadership, council, and other groups have been struggling with are really in the right direction. The grassroots said, you know, you are dealing with the right issues, and for the most part, you focused us in the right direction. You need to make some changes, but for the most part, it was a reaffirmation, and that's a very positive feedback message from our grassroots. But secondly, what it said was that as a profession, we're committed to moving up to a higher level of service. We are not satisfied with being professionals that deliver service at the so-called compliance level, or even having an image of delivering service at that level, even if in reality we are not. And that's a very important message, because that's how value in the marketplace, that's how flexibility to change can all be created. And we have to constantly remind ourselves as we go through the vision implementation process, as we look at the implications to committees and to the Institute, and to our staff, and to state societies, and to individual firms, and to industry employers, and to members servicing industry employers, that we are committed to moving up that value chain. and that we need to move up that value chain because we're the right set of professionals that can meet those demands and create value-added services and meet public interest in doing so.
In the 1950s, Sony was just one of the many Japanese companies suffering from the stereotyped image of the label Made in Japan. This was a significant issue that needed to be addressed if the company was to compete and have long-term profitability. The public perception was that products from Japan were not only inexpensive, but of poor quality. And Sony president Akio Morita set out to change that. In 1952, Sony attempted to produce a pocketable radio. Many thought this could not be commercially feasible. Sony engineers considered it a perfect opportunity to show their superiority in developing innovative technology. Their success produced a product line that became pervasive worldwide. The image of Made in Japan was changed, and soon it was the American public that was rushing to get its first Sony.
Core values are really the shared beliefs that individuals have, and when you bring those together, they're not just what we want to be in the future, but they're really who we are. When you're looking at the values that an organization holds, it allows the organization to focus on a small, manageable number of things. You can't be all things to all people, so you have to develop the key aspects that you will focus on. And being able to focus on something like integrity and leveraging that value will allow an organization to really separate itself out from other organizations and put itself at a competitive advantage.
I think there's two significant issues that permeate from a core value that says we're committed to lifelong learning. Number one is that it's a clear statement for the CPA profession that says we are serious about being competent, and we're serious about changing with the times, and we know we have to continually learn in order to be valuable in that environment. It's a very positive statement for a profession to say. The second thing is that we also have to look at what lifelong learning is. And we've started a project on redefining continuing education. It's actually started over a year ago. The board in its April meeting saw a preliminary report on where that committee is, and likely we'll be bringing information to council over the next several months so that we can begin the process of redefining how we're going to deal with lifelong learning to make it as flexible as possible so that we meet the needs of our customers, our clients, our employers, depending on whatever environment we're in.
It doesn't much matter what an organization's core values are, so long as they're an accurate representation of who you are. Nike's exalted value is cutthroat competitiveness.
Maybe they're friendly.
But the company makes no bones about it and works to instill those values in all employees and new hires. What's important is the discipline the values impose and the alignment and attitude that flows throughout the organization. This is a make or break business issue. If members of the organization can't get behind the values, there'll be little consensus and support.
One of the key elements of the visioning process is to identify services and what competencies the CPA profession will require to provide those services 10 to 15 years from now. Most simply put, services are the things that CPAs get paid or receive compensation for. The difficulty with services is to identify ones that are going to be at the top of the value chain in the marketplace 10 to 15 years from now. The services that we've identified through the future forums are what we're talking about when we say core competencies is identifying a unique blend of knowledge and skills that is highly valued by the marketplace and difficult for our competitors to imitate. An analogy of a core competency would be most people have the skill to drive an automobile. However, to be truly competent at driving, you have to be in the league of a race car driver.
A core value is similar to a statement like, parallel lines do not intersect. It's an assumption that you fall back on again and again, a belief. A core purpose is what you're aiming for. It's the ultimate goal, as defined in your core values that your organization aspires to.
The core purpose, in essence, forms the platform for the vision. In that, your core purpose describes the essence of the organization's reason for being. When you go to the vision, that's a description of the full story. It includes our services, core competencies, markets, the values we hold on to. So it really tells the story of the future state of the profession. If you look at successful visionary companies, you will find that their core purposes are usually very clearly stated. But you'll also find that it doesn't explain how, what, where, or anything. It's a general statement that has longevity, but it explains to each and every individual within that organization exactly what they stand for.
We will not succeed if we only tackle the vision and the repositioning of our profession on the fringes. It has to be in the core. And to the extent it's in the core, we will be able to see it manifest over the next few years. Things like people buying into finding a way to sell new web trust services or new assurance services in general. Finding a way to change the image of the profession from both a global perspective, but from each individual perspective. To the extent that each individual CPA takes ownership in changing the image of the CPA and challenging sort of the old stereotypes that come with us and demonstrate the new thinking that's going on in the profession and being proud of that new thinking, then we will begin to change the image of the profession.
The value of having everybody on the same page with a core purpose enables us all to think basically the same, in the sense that enables us to look forward to the type of services we should offer, the type of clients we should serve, how we serve them, how we perform our services. And it just enables us to become more efficient, more effective, and more profitable.
I think the vision process is going to draw us together as a profession so that those of us who are in industry will be able to identify more readily with those in public practice. There's currently a division, in my opinion, and I think this visioning process will help to draw us together to make us valuable, not only as public accountants who are practicing, but as industry accountants who are also practicing the profession, but on a more focused or limited scope.
As a small practitioner, I think it's really important that we can involve as many professionals in the process as possible. Up to this point, I think there have been approximately 4,000 members involved. We need to get the message out to everyone. If we do this, I think that the profession will be much more viable going into the future, and it is important that we look at what our competencies need to be, that we get ourselves trained and educated in that area, so that going forward the CPA has a true meaning to the public that will go well into the future.